Hello everybody. Welcome back to our series of India's relationship with other countries continent-wise. Today in this series, let us look at the world's most populous and most important country, China. China is officially called the People's Republic of China, is located in the eastern part of the Asian continent. Let us first look at the map of China. Being the third largest country in the world, China shares its border with 14 other countries that are Russia and Mongolia to the north, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan and India to the west, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, Vietnam and Laos to the south, and North Korea to the east. These countries form the land boundaries with China, whereas the Yellow Sea, East China Sea and South China Sea make the water boundary, the coastline boundaries with the country China. Over here, South China Sea is one of the most disputed regions with which all the Southeast Asian nations have concerns, whereas China marks its trade under the 9-dash line. Since China is a very powerful country in the world in terms of its economic powers, the population and the size of this nation, in this lecture we will be discussing about the relationship India and China had in the past, the differences between both these countries, the political relations our country has with China, the direct investments both these countries have, and the educational relations and cultural relationship. Speaking about the relationship India had with China in the past, let me start with the dates from when our countries have gained independence. Both these countries have gained independence more or less at the same time. India had gained independence in the year 1947 and China on 1st October 1949. On 30th October 1949, India became the first non-communist country to recognize People's Republic of China, and in the year 1950 appointed K.N. Parikar as the first Indian ambassador to China. In the year 1954, both these countries signed the Panchashil Treaty to lay a roadmap for stability between the two regions. But however, China's stand on Tibet came as a disappointment to Nehru and his vision of peaceful coexistence. And on 3rd April 1959, India granted asylum to Dalai Lama, who had escaped from the Rhasa after China's annexation of Tibet. This was the start of our relations taking a bad turn with China. In 1950s, both the countries started having conflict over border issues, and on 20th October 1962, China launched a massive attack on India, which resulted in India's defeat, and due to this, the relations between both the countries deteriorated in 1960s and the 70s. The relations again started to strengthen in the year 1988 with the visit of then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi to China. In the year 2004, both the countries proposed the opening up of the Natula and the Jalepla passes in Sikkim, and bilateral trade surpassed the $10 billion mark in that same year. And in the year 2010, 400 Chinese visited India to increase the trade relations. And in the year 2014, Chinese President visited India and promoted $20 billion worth investments for over 5 years. This way, time and then, our country had its consequences in having a relationship with China. Let us now look at the disputes our country has with China. Talking about the border disputes between India and China, the first region that comes in mind is the Aksai Chin region, which lies in the eastern part of Jammu and Kashmir. It does not have many inhabitants due to its high elevation and its extreme weather. India says it is a part of the Ladakh region, which was recently declared as the Union Territory and comes under the country India, whereas China claims it to be a part of its easternmost region, Xinjiang, and does not claim it to be a part of the Indian regions. So, the very first demarcation of India and China was done in the year 1865 by then British official named William Johnson. This was the border that was demarcated by William Johnson in the year 1865, and this was agreed by both these nations until a new demarcation by then British General George Macartney proposed another line along with British envoy of China Claude MacDonald. They came up with a new demarcation called the Macartney-MacDonald line. As per this boundary, China claimed the Aksai-Chin region. Later, after 50 years, China built a road between Tibet and Xinjiang. And India, not paying attention then, this road became the starting point of dispute between the two nations. And in the recent ongoing border dispute between China and India, taking the line of actual control, where China says Indian troops have trespassed and accused them of trying to build defense facilities in that region, whereas the Indian government says its orders remained on its territory. This dispute is still ongoing between the two nations, and both these countries now decided to have a dialogue. Also, the US President has offered to help resolve the dispute, but neither sides have given any response on this issue. The Doklam Valley dispute between China, Bhutan and India is also one of the border disputes, but here India does not have any claim on the territory, but was supporting Bhutan on their claim over the territory. China still claims a part of Arunachal Pradesh as the southern Tibet and does not accept the McMahon line, which India claims as their region. This is also one of the major disputes that India should be careful about. Ever since India applied for the membership of NSG in May 2016, China has been opposing, saying only those countries which have signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty should be allowed to enter the organization. Keeping this in mind, India also refused to sign the China's One Belt One Road initiative, saying that we will not accept projects that ignore core concerns on sovereignty and the territorial integrity. Talking about the disputes, the relationship between China and Pakistan play a major concern to India on trusting China at various platforms. China is helping Pakistan to build missile technology and fighter aircrafts. Pakistan has also turned to China for the purchase of their arms, and China is building a 3,000 km long economic corridor in Pakistan. The longest part in this corridor passes through the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir region. And CPEC is initiated to rapidly modernize Pakistan's infrastructure and strengthen its economy by construction of modern transportation networks, numerous energy projects and special economic zones. This project raised security concerns for our country with respect to China. To understand the political relationship between the two countries, the number of visits made by the head of the states or head of the government to both these countries is very important. The high-level visits always add substance over the ties between both these countries. In April 2018, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi held the first informal summit in Wuhan to exchange views on overarching issues of bilateral importance. The two leaders also visited each other's countries on various multilateral summits like the G20, BRICS, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Russia, India and China Foreign Ministries meetings, etc. Both these countries have established more than 30 dialogue mechanisms at various levels covering bilateral, political, economic, consular matters as well as dialogues on the regions and global issues. Both these countries have 24 agreements signed on the government-to-government side and 26 MOUs on the business-to-business side and 2 joint statements. Few of the MOUs signed between both these countries are Plan of Action to implement the protocol between the Ministry of External Affairs of the Republic of India and Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China on cooperation in bilateral relations, 2020. MOU on sports cooperation between General Administration of Sports China and the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports India. Program of cultural exchange between the Government of China and the National Museum of Government of India. MOU between the National Administration of Traditional Chinese Medicine and Ministry of Ayush, India, concerning cooperation in traditional medicines. The trade and economic relationship between India and China has seen a rapid growth in the last few years. In the year 2018, In the year 2018, bilateral trade reached an all-time high of $95.54 billion of the total bilateral trade volume. And India's exports were of $18.84 billion. India was the 7th largest export destination for Chinese products and 27th largest exporter to China. India's major export items were cotton, copper, gems, etc., whereas the major Chinese exports include telecom, machinery, power-related equipment, organic chemicals and fertilizers. Though the trade between India and China sees such big figures, it has also led to the biggest single trade deficit we are running with any other country. India has a trade deficit of $63.12 billion in the year 2017 and 18 with China. And in the year 2018, India has initiated a countervailing duty into increased imports of Chinese synthetic rubber. This move was aimed at guarding domestic players from the increase in imports that are subsidized by the neighboring nation. India has imposed anti-dumping duty on many Chinese products like the fibers and yarn, machine items, rubber and steel. India and China signed Educational Exchange Program in the year 2006, which is an umbrella agreement for educational cooperation between the two countries. On May 15, 2015, both the countries have signed a fresh educational exchange program, under which the Chinese government provides 100 scholarships annually for the Indian students to study in China. This agreement also provides cooperation between the two countries in the field of vocational training, institutes of higher learning, etc. Apart from this, Chinese students are also awarded scholarships annually to study Hindi at the Kendriya Hindi Sansthan in Agra. Coming to the cultural relations, India and China's cultural relations date back to many centuries. Several Buddhist pilgrims and scholars traveled to China on the historic route called the Silk Route. Ancient Indian monk scholars such as Kumarajiva, Bodhidharma, Dharmakshema contributed to the spread of Buddhism in China. Famous Chinese pilgrimages like the Fahian and Zhangzang also undertook their journeys in India. Yoga is very popular in China. China was one of the co-sponsors to the United Nations resolution designating 21st June as International Yoga Day. The Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center of Embassy of India, inaugurated in 2018, runs music, dance and yoga classes regularly in China. Before wrapping up, let us also make a note on the recent COVID-19 situation and its implications on international relations. China, being the source of this major outbreak, is being told by the United States, claiming that the World Health Organization is being too China-centric and is failing in tackling the coronavirus pandemic in this situation. Currently, the United States step of considering fund cut to the World Health Organization is being critiqued majorly, while the World Health Organization and China claim that they have time and then been responsible and transparent in handling the coronavirus situation, and also state that the tests will stand the rest of history. This was a brief about India's relationship with China. Hope this was helpful. For further details on the courses that are being conducted online, please visit to the website www.sozineclasses.com. Thank you and have a great day.